What are some of the key principles that I need to understand if I'm going to consistently generate 10 inbound inquiries a week through my LinkedIn profile?
Well, we start with the basics, which is qualify as hard as you need to before you give someone the ability to work with you. You are the prize, they are coming to you. They're used to the provider chasing them. And when you kind of flick that, two paths that people take to make a purchase, you're either in their buying process or they're in your sales process. One you can control and one you can't. Different processes of how you can transition from a direct message to booking a call. One of the best ways to do this is to use a lead magnet. The particular type of lead magnet is what I found probably over the last 2 years, which has kind of really let my stuff go from kind of doing relatively well to really kind of piercing through a very competitive market is
What would your business be like if you had 10 new inbound inquiries from your ideal client every single week? In today's episode, I'm talking to Jason Squires, who has been teaching thousands of service-based business owners to do exactly that. Jason himself has built his business to multiple 7 figures just using the power of LinkedIn. I've known Jason for a while, and he is genuinely one of the most authentic people when it comes to generating inquiries through LinkedIn. And in this episode, he breaks down the whole process. We really get into the nuts and bolts of what you need to put on your LinkedIn profile, what you need to say in your connection messages, and how to book calls and get clients chasing you rather than you chasing them. As always, please share this episode with a friend. And if you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Jason, what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people making when they're trying to attract clients on LinkedIn?
I think it's straying from the basics. And I think everything to do with how a successful marketing and sales campaign should run, the problems are usually straying from the basics. So any form of attention that you're going to get on LinkedIn that you want from a particular avatar or ICP, it's always going to start with what they want. So no one really listens or cares or wants to have any understanding of what you do, what you sell, what you provide, what you offer. Everybody's innately selfish. So if we kind of just twist that kind of paradigm straight away and talk about everything that they want, that they would like to achieve, that the problems that they have, instantly you're talking their language and they're going to be more receptive to what you've got to say. So, and that is probably embedded through every level, not just kind of getting attention on LinkedIn, but getting sales conversations started, selling your thing, getting referrals, kind of brand awareness and thought leadership. It's all based around what the other person wants and has got very little to do with what you actually offer.
Yeah, and it's kind of a fundamental pillar of marketing, really, isn't it? And I think based on my experience, and I know you've got quite a few creatives that join your program, I think it's probably one of the first things that we spot, and one of the biggest mindset shifts that people have to make is it's not about the animation or the branding or the web design. It's about what do your ideal clients actually want and how does the thing that you do get them closer to that. And so one of the biggest challenges that I find when I'm trying to convey this to people is the fact that most service-based business owners just don't know. Like they've never taken the time to figure out A, maybe even who their ideal client is, and B, what that person really wants. So if that's me, what are the first steps that I need to start taking in order to get that kind of information and start thinking in that way?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the best way to kind of at least begin to get an understanding and awareness of it is look at the results that you've achieved for clients previously. So if it's a piece of creative work or some graphic design pack or some ads that you've designed or some short form video reels, whatever it may be, they weren't coming to you initially just for the short form video content or the ads or whatever you've designed. What that's resulted in is probably what they're going to be most happy with. So an increase in the click-through rate or an increase in conversion rate or an increase in conversion rate with a landing page to generate more leads or whatever the outcome is of the thing that you've provided for them. That's what you want to be kind of shouting about in the marketplace, not about doing the next piece of best creative work. It's more so what the outcome is, what the end objective is. And taking that one step further, what I found probably over the last 2 years, which has kind of really let my stuff go from kind of doing relatively well to really kind of piercing through a very competitive market, is owning that outcome. So not just kind of picking one particular thing and mentioning it once in a social media post, having that as your entire kind of suite of people coming to you and what you can offer them. So everything that I kind of put in that into context now. So what I offer is kind of LinkedIn lead generation training, demand generation, getting people into sales pipelines in order for you to then close them, just kind of get the little kind of cogs turning and people moving through a system. So now what I did, as well as look back over my previous client base to see what everyone was happy with. Now, it doesn't really necessarily matter if they were taking LinkedIn training or not. What they were really wanting was an increase in inquiries. So instead of now putting my front-end marketing and my sales spiel being all about LinkedIn training, it's all about getting inquiries. So I don't even reference LinkedIn training. I don't reference demand generation or the thing that I actually teach people to do. It's more so, would you like more inquiries? And then kind of layering it on top of that, as human beings, we like numbers, we like certainty. So if you can attach a number or a metric or some form of increase in revenue or decrease in time spent, or attach it to some form of number, then it's going to give your offer, an intangible offer, a tangible feel. So again, how I've related this to my little world is it's not LinkedIn training. It could be generate more inquiries, but what it is 10 inquiries per week. So we've got a specific number of what they're getting, and then we've also got a time frame of when they can expect to get that by. So instead of shouting out to the market who would like LinkedIn training, as everybody else does, what we can do is create something I term a blue ocean. So we want to pick an outcome. So for mine, it's 10 inquiries per week. Pick an outcome, own the outcome, and have that labeled and plastered everywhere. Be known for that one thing. So it's not great creative design. It's a click-through rate of 3% on your Facebook ads. And you'll get known for that one particular thing, and people will be drawn to you because that's what they actually want. They don't want great Facebook ads. They want a high click-through rate so they can get more out of their advertising spend to increase their revenue. So look at the outcome you offer based on what your previous clients have achieved through you so far. Pick one of them that your client's going to be most receptive to, put a metric on it, and shout loud and proud for as long as humanly possible until everyone's heard your message. And at that point, you've probably collected quite a nice number of clients for your own business in the process.
Yeah, I love that as a strategy. I think it makes a lot of sense. I've seen you walk the walk because your message is exactly the same as it was when I joined your program over a year ago. And so I love that. One of the things I know from creatives is that they really struggle with this concept.
Yeah,
because
sure.
I've tried to hone it into them. And I'd love to have this as a conversation rather than kind of putting you on the spot and saying, well, how do we do this, Jason? Like, I would love to kind of bounce this backwards and forwards because I've got some ideas on it as well. But what would you say to, let's say, a branding agency that says, I get that, Jason, that's all very well, but I don't really know what outcomes I got for my client by that rebrand. And when I ask them, they just say, oh, we feel a lot more confident in our brand, and just kind of really intangible things like that. How do I get down to that essence that you just described where we have something a lot more tangible?
Well, I think it probably really starts with why they wanted a rebrand in the first place. If they didn't feel they needed a rebrand, they wouldn't have rebranded. So there's a couple of common reasons why people want to make a change or purchase something. It's either to buy back time, or it's to increase or save money, so generate more revenue or save costs. So it's very likely linked to one of those few things. It could be argued that they're falling behind in the market and they want to kind of get on par or better than the competitors, which I would argue is linked to an increase in revenue. So it all comes down to like what numbers and what the reason is for them coming to you in the first place, which you can then maybe give you a bit of guidance on what to dig for when you're looking back at what you've done for other people to kind of try and find those things in other clients that you've worked with.
Yeah.
And failing all of that, have a conversation with them. Ask them what the difference was. What did it result in? And just stop and wait to see what they say.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest pitfalls that a lot of my clients seem to fall into, is that they just don't have enough conversations. And that's for a myriad of reasons. But actually just sitting down before and after the project and asking the right questions and really getting down to that essence, like you said, of what they're hoping as an outcome is such an underrated thing to do. So let's just kind of go one layer deeper, because what I find when I go through this process with my clients is that often they will come up with outcomes like an increase in revenue and brand awareness and things like that. And they all still sound a little bit generic and a little bit fluffy. How did you get to the point where you got so specific around 10 inquiries a week? And in that particular time frame, I think one of the things you say is in less than 30 minutes a day.
I had an inclination. I mean, being in business for so long, you've probably got a reason or a good understanding of why people are coming to you in the first place. And you'll have some good feedback based on something being increased or an objective being met or an award being won. Whatever that thing is, you've probably got a clue already if you look long and hard enough. So what I did is a great little bit of market research as well. I just kind of stumbled upon this idea and it seemed to work. And it's been kind of almost the linchpin of my entire business for the last 2 or 3 years now. Is that I knew that it wasn't LinkedIn training that people wanted to come to me for. I knew it was, they were doing it for a reason, and that was to generate more inquiries. That's all they were really bothered about. If they could get the inquiries without the LinkedIn training, they wouldn't need me, which again is also fair enough. So I understood and I knew that inquiries was the name of the game. The other thing that I suppose an epiphany I had was that you also have to kind of talk their language. So for me, I work with service-based businesses, and the language they use for an inquiry is simply an inquiry. Or if it was a florist, it would be a booking, maybe a wedding booking or a birthday booking. So the most generic way of describing an inquiry would be a lead. And I knew that my audience wouldn't resonate with that. So a little bit of an insight was firstly start using the language that they're using. So what do they want to actually achieve? If it's a charity, you don't want to be talking to them about increasing the conversion rate of the website. You want to be talking about increasing donations to their website. As soon as you use the word donations, it's their language, they resonate with it, and all of a sudden, they're a bit more receptive to what you've got to say. So the first thing is really kind of just the terminology of how you describe the thing that you're achieving. And secondly, then when it comes onto the quota or the metric that I kind of didn't know what to kind of hook onto, which I knew my audience would be receptive to, I did a poll on LinkedIn. It's as simple as this was. I did a poll on LinkedIn. And it was something to the degree of, and I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. It was just I had to post something on that given day. And I thought, oh, go for this. How many inquiries per week would you be happy with in order to grow your business? Everyone's got a different number depending on how big or how small the companies are. Did a range of 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 20 to 15, 100 plus, a big range. So that went out to the LinkedIn algorithm. And what I also did, another little hack to get more volume in order to get a little bit of confirmation, because if you get 3 people voting in a poll, you don't really know. You've not really got any data there at all to make a decision on. I put an email out to all of my email contacts. So my current clients, my previous clients, my leads list, my CRM database, anyone I've got accessible to send an email to, my newsletter. Sent an email out saying, just doing a bit of market research. Would you mind taking part in this poll? Copied and pasted the link to the LinkedIn poll, which was live on LinkedIn. They click the link, go over onto LinkedIn, vote in the poll. So I think we had something like 300 votes because it kind of resonated with, oh, this is my language. I'm going to just share a little bit of intel. I wasn't going to pitch anything to them. There's no kind of risk for them kind of revealing what they wanted and me to kind of hound them afterwards. It wasn't any of that. The answer that came back was a resounding 10 inquiries per week. And that was all I needed to say, that's what the market wants. Or a good portion of my market that is going to be receptive to what I've got to say is going to be interested in 10 inquiries per week. The first promo I did took off like I've never seen before. And since then, that's just all I've been talking about, 10 inquiries per week. So yeah, that was my little process of doing it. And you can kind of take the moving parts of how I came to that conclusion, apply it to your little world and get the same insight.
Yeah, I love that. Just for anyone that missed what Jason just said there, and a little hack that I've never actually thought of, but is absolutely genius, is creating a poll on LinkedIn and then emailing that poll with the link directly to the LinkedIn post to your email database. And I know a lot of people listening will be like, I don't have an email database, but just notice that Jason said his previous clients, his existing clients, anybody who he's had a sales conversation with, like emailing it out and say, hey, I'm just doing a bit of market research. Would you mind taking 2 seconds to do this? And that's actually genius, because a lot of the objection that I get from people when I suggest things like this is, oh, we don't have a massive audience on LinkedIn, so we only got like 5 replies or whatever. And so I just love this idea of this almost kind of central database of truth, I guess, rather than asking lots of different people. It's like, hey, keep coming back to this. And then the more people that answer, the more LinkedIn kind of pushes it out. So
That's it.
yeah, love that hack. Absolutely
Polls
genius.
are great at the moment for it. Well, they always have been, and some people complain about it because they're a little bit engagement baity, but they work really well. They get the highest engagement rate out of any kind of type of content you can post on LinkedIn. So if you ask a direct question that your specific target audience are happy to answer, they'll vote in it, which then pushes it out to more of the same type of people who would also, so it almost has like a ripple and a pond effect. I don't want to use the word viral because I hate that word, but the more of the same type of people that vote in the poll, it pushes it out to people outside of your network who are also those same types of people. So you don't have to have a huge LinkedIn network. Post it out organically, push some email traffic to it, and then just let the algorithm do its job. You may get 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 plus votes in the poll, but you should certainly have enough to get a good indication of what it is that your audience and your network want. And then you can kind of use that to kind of create your offer around.
Yeah, I love that. Sounds so simple, but it's also so effective.
As I say again, everything that I'm going to refer to are the basics.
Yeah.
You can get so far in business off the basics. And so many people, businesses, both young, old, in between, growing, small, startups, however big they are, the basics are ignored. And the frustration of not doing well enough in business is because the basics haven't been dialed in and everyone's looking for the next shiny object. It all comes down to what you sell, who you sell it to, what they can get out of it, and putting that offer in front of as many of those relevant people as possible. And you can build a very significant business on the back of those very simple steps, which is exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. For a lot of people, it's not exciting. And sometimes the basics are boring and that's why they're not doing it.
Yeah.
And they're
Absolutely.
trying to find the shiny object because they're like, oh, this new exciting thing. And I couldn't agree with you more. And I think there's lots of people that have iterated this. I know Hormozy is one of them. You know, he says that it's not that the best people are doing lots of different things or lots of more advanced things. They're just doing the basics better than you. So I think this is really important. The way that we're structuring this conversation is really important because we could have just got straight into LinkedIn tactics, but without this fundamental stuff, none of the tactics work, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I do want to get a little bit into the tactical stuff in a minute. One thing I just want to ask you is, how do you feel about owning that outcome when there's only a certain amount you can actually do to help people get that?
Twofold. Firstly, it comes down to accountability on their part. That everyone in business now, if you've been in business for longer than a year or two, they'll know that it takes hard work, dedication, consistency. There's ups and downs. It's not a straight line. It's not a straight path, and you have to take like true, absolute responsibility and ownership for your own results. So part of my job isn't to make sure that they get the results. It's almost to give them the tools they need, almost like leading a horse to water. You can give them everything they need. It really is down to them to go up to the horse trough and take a sip. They need to kind of to put the work in. And the second part of that is, granted, and I know a little kind of issue or problem that I kind of put myself in, is that the headline of 10 inquiries per week is, it's going to be attractive to anyone in business. So the net is probably cast a bit too wide. And because of that, which is again the reason why I can kind of almost assure that people I do work with get the result, is that I have to, and this is another kind of fundamental, which I wish I learned earlier in my little business life, is to qualify. Qualify as hard as you need to before you give someone the ability to work with you. And what I mean by qualify is, we need them to jump through some hoops. Now, there's two paths that people take to make a purchase. You're either in their buying process or they're in your sales process. One you can control and one you can't. So if you're in their buying process, you could be dragged all around the place, phone calls, meetings, one-to-ones. We'll think about it after Christmas. But if they're in your sales process, you get to kind of set the steps of what they need to do first, and then second, and then third. And because you're starting to lead, the more you lead, the more people follow. So if you set up a process, it may be 3 steps, it may be 2 steps, it may be one big step for working with you. But as long as you don't deviate from your own process, then you're going to be working with the clients that you want to work with. So within that little process, which I'm sure we'll get into the nuts and bolts of what mine is later, which I'm sure everyone can learn from, is a qualification piece. So the qualification piece is asking them the things that they need to have in place for you to be able to deliver what your outcome is. So my outcome is 10 inquiries per week. So my qualification piece, and it's not a done for you service, it's teaching you how to do it, teach a man how to fish, man or a woman how to fish. and then you can go off and fish, and you're self-sufficient with your inquiry flow to a stage of 10 inquiries per week. So the questions I ask are, firstly, can you close? When you get an inquiry, what's your conversion rate? Is it 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 plus percent? Or do you not know? If you don't know, then you've also got a sales process problem as well as a marketing lead generation problem. So I can't solve both of those problems, which people don't really have that awareness. So the first question is, can you close inquiries when you get them? If that's a yes, then you get through to the next stage. The next stage after that is, do you have a certain number of hours to work on this per week? You've got to put the work in to get the results. If it's a no, then there's no point going any further, because it's, again, a square peg in a round hole. It's not going to work. And those are the two main criteria things for me. Can you sell already? So do you have proof of concept? And do you have the time to put in? Now, granted, what your outcome is going to be when you've come up with that outcome is going to be different. So if your outcome is get a 3% click-through rate on your ads, one of the qualifying pieces may be, do you spend at least £3,000 per month on ads at the moment? If you don't, then what I'm going to offer you is going to result in absolutely nothing at all. So there's always some form of caveats that a client would need to have for you to kind of come in and work your magic. It may be a certain number of website visitors on the website. They may have a certain presence in the market. It may be a certain number of employees. It's going to be different for everybody. But we need to figure out what those qualifying things are, ask them up front, barring the price. The price comes in the sales process in my little world. But we don't want to be getting on a sales call with somebody if they haven't got those few fundamental things in place initially, because the call's a waste of time. And that alone will increase your conversion rate on a phone call from 30% to 60% if you're only speaking with the ones who tick all of your relevant boxes.
It's such an important point. And again, one that a lot of people miss. And there's a few things that come to my mind. The first one is that, all services aren't created equal. So that your ability to brand and your ability to help someone with their brand is not the same at every level. A small business that doesn't have a global audience is not going to get the same value from working with you as a corporate that does have a global audience. But I don't think many creatives take that into consideration. And I know when I first started my business, I didn't think about that. I was like, if you've got a pulse and you've got some money to spend, I can create a website for you.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And it's not really my responsibility what you do with that website. I'm just good at creating websites. And so I'm confident on the delivery from my end, and what you do with that is totally up to you. But what I think we're touching on here is really about taking a bit of responsibility for that outcome. And I got asked a question once, I think it was by Daniel Priestley, and he said to me, what would need to be in your process if you only got paid when you delivered the result for that person? And I was like, And he was like, and who are the people that you would want to work with to take that risk? And I started really thinking about the products and services that I offered through that lens. And it just helps you to really take a bit of responsibility for who you're putting through that process and who's actually the ideal person to get that result. And I just think what you've touched on there is so, so important. And I think it's a great answer to how do you deal with this idea of responsibility for the outcome. I think so many creatives are so reluctant to make any kind of promises because they're like, well, I can't promise that. Find the people that you can promise that to.
Yeah.
Right? Find the people that if they have the right things in place, it becomes easy.
You know what, as well, just to kind of get straight to kind of like the bleeding artery. Sometimes you have to promise something that you don't know you can deliver. If you've never done it before, you never offered it before, it's going to feel scary, and you will genuinely not know. You won't be confident if you can deliver or not. Chances are you can do, but there'll be a little voice of self-limiting doubt and imposter syndrome telling you that you can't do this. Even though you've likely done it several times before, got to get yourself out there. You've got to own an outcome that you know people want. You've got to put it in front of people. Do a small test sample. Work with 5 clients. And your only job is to deliver the outcome. It doesn't really matter how you get to the outcome. So if it's not your best design work, your job is now to provide the outcome, not to provide pretty pictures. To really call it for what it is. And that's how you stand out from the crowd. Because I know, again, the creative industry is, how many thousands, maybe tens of thousands of new entrants come into that world every year. So your competition is just going up and up and up and up. And offering LinkedIn training, if you search for LinkedIn training on LinkedIn, there's tens of thousands of people internationally. And we've got to stand out from all of that. And the only way to do that is to latch onto an outcome, put yourself out there, get good at achieving that outcome, and then your confidence increases, and then everything feels a lot more smoother.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you touched on an important point there, which allows people to get started. And I think that's one of the biggest blockers is people don't want to do it because they don't feel confident necessarily, or they've changed their process, or they're like, oh, this is the outcome, but can I really guarantee that for everybody? One of the things I used to do, and I think I learned this from Taki actually, who we've both worked with, is like the case study example, is if you launch a new offer, just say, cool, I'm launching a case study. I want 5 people who meet this criteria, and I'm going to work with you closely to help you get this outcome. And what I want at the end of it is 5 case studies and 5 people who are raving about what we do.
Yeah, sure. So in hindsight, it will feel like, why haven't you done that? Why haven't you done that sooner? Because you will realize that everything's okay. You got the result, people are happy, your confidence goes up, and you think to yourself, why didn't I do this years ago? I mean, my little business journey now is probably into its maybe 14th or 15th year. It took me until probably the 12th year to really kind of understand these absolute core principles. So I think everybody goes on a zigzagging path. I mean, you see, on social media, Facebook ads, LinkedIn, everyone's successful all the time, and you kind of compare where you are right now, whatever phase of your journey, to people that are 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of you, and it's almost a little bit demoralizing. So I think it's almost another kind of no-brainer that now I absolutely just commit to, is almost blocking out what everyone else is doing and just focusing on your own path. And it's easier to do that when you kind of, on the other side of things and everything's kind of going well. But before you really do start to lay that path out of getting a firmer offer and firming up your ICP and offering something which is tangible, before you've done all that, it feels scary. So kind of marching through, charging on, getting 5 clients under your belt which have achieved that offer. You got 5 great referrals, great recommendations rather, and you know that the path ahead is going to be a nice trajectory rather than playing a guessing game of trying to compete with everyone else on a similar playing field.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Okay, so let's get down into some of the nuts and bolts of this. Let's imagine I'm listening. I know how to close a deal. When something comes in, I've got a really high close rate. I'm good at conversations. I'm good at talking about my product. And I've got at least 30 minutes, if not more, to dedicate to this. What are the first steps? What are some of the key principles that I need to understand if I'm going to consistently generate 10 inbound inquiries a week through my LinkedIn profile?
Well, we start with the basics, which is ensuring that your LinkedIn profile is as it needs to be. So before we get to kind of about the 30 minute per day kind of checklist, there's some prep that needs to happen. First of those is to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is exactly how you need it. So it's calling out your ideal target clients. So we're not talking to everyone and anybody. We're actually picking a market that we want to serve. So it could be manufacturing, or it could be accounting, or it could be personal trainers, or it could be retail. It could be anything. I just pick a target. So your LinkedIn banner, text on there, calling out who you work with, and then in as fewer words as possible, referencing what the outcome is. So the outcome that you provide. And it needs to be an outcome that they want as well. And an outcome that they want resides from a problem that they currently have. So if they don't have leads, I offer 10 inquiries per week. If their ads aren't working, you offer creatives that gets a 3% click-through rate. So when you've got your problem nailed, your outcome nailed, we then have your LinkedIn banner image, who you're working with, what your outcome is, and that kind of sets the stage. That's your shop window. Second to that is your header text, and it's the kind of the same stuff, but in a slightly longer sentence. So we work with whoever you work with to achieve whatever outcome within whatever time frame. Send me a DM to learn more, or some soft call to action. My call to action is to send people to a high converting landing page, which is a webinar funnel that I've got running. So if you have a lead magnet, I'm sure we'll touch on lead magnets very shortly. We want to direct people over to an opt-in page to grab their details. And I'm probably going quite hot and heavy now with do this, then this, then this, then this. But this is kind of all in the setup. It wouldn't be just a 30-second blurb and an hour's worth of work. This is probably going to be a week's worth of homework to do before you start actively prospecting. So when you've done all of that, LinkedIn gives you the option and the ability, and some may know this, some may not. People have got varying levels of experience and expertise now with LinkedIn, because it's been around for however many years. We have the ability to send 100 outbound connections per week. So we want to max that out. One of the better ways of doing that is we only connect with those who we want to be working with. So based on geography, industry, job title, company size, we want your ideal target clients. You want to know who they are, Again, one of the basics that you need to have dialed in. You don't want to be targeting 3 different kind of industries because you just get lost in the noise. Your messaging doesn't land because you're trying to speak to 3 different people. We use Sales Navigator. You can get a little bit more granular with who you are targeting. So you should have a list of as many that exists of those ideal target clients for you to then approach, connect with at a rate of 100 per week. We can use a separate tool called Dripify to automate that. We don't add a connection text message. That's another question you get asked all the time. It's a blank message. So it's not, "Hi, John, I would love to connect with you. We've got 4 connections in common." It's insincere. Everyone knows it's insincere. Unless you do actually know that person, there's no need to add a connection text.
Okay, interesting. I can feel people frantically taking notes. So let's just
you can pause and rewind.
And then, let's just slow down a little bit. So we've got
there's plenty more. I've got loads to
come. I can feel it. I can feel the energy. You're getting excited now. So LinkedIn banner, LinkedIn profile, targeting your ideal client. I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second because I know these are some of the things that are going through people's mind. Because this is quite common now. What are your thoughts on people that say, "Oh, as soon as I see one of those profiles, I can get you X in this amount of time and the banner and blah, blah, blah. I know they're going to pitch me, so I don't connect with them"?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I can only really answer that with real world experience rather than what I think a problem might be. The best way to kind of disprove that this doesn't work is doing it and then telling me that it doesn't work. But what will actually happen is you'll get clients out of it.
Yeah.
So
which is so funny because this is basically all of my coaching conversations, which is people just like giving me theoretical problems.
What if it doesn't work?
Yeah. And then
it does work.
Yeah, me having to coach them through taking action. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's a tough one, really. I don't know if it just comes down to expressing yourself openly on the internet and being open for criticism. I don't know if that's a thing holding people back. And I've been doing my little thing for such a long time now. I'm very desensitized to it. So granted, if you're used to kind of working behind the scenes, you've not really had to kind of put yourself out publicly before, it might feel a bit unnerving, which is completely fine. And if that is the case, don't overpromise something too big. Promise something that you're comfortable with. And then speak to a handful of people and then maybe push the boundaries a little bit further. And this is definitely not a case of trying to over guarantee something which you don't think is achievable, because then you will feel a little bit off center. It's got to be congruent with what you can actually achieve. You do get the charlatans promising X, Y, and Z, and within 6 months' time, you'll notice their businesses no longer exist because it's built on nothing. So you only can really kind of brand yourself in this way on the things that you're confident of doing. And the ones who are going to be listening to this podcast and working with you and work with me, respectively, they're going to have ticks in those boxes already.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there like a softer way to do this? Is there a middle ground between this kind of hard 10 inquiries a week, blah, 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 and we make pretty brands?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it is a middle way. So it's not just still sticking with we create pretty brands. It's going to be more towards an outcome, but not with a tangible number attached to it. So how to increase your conversion rate with your website. And it's not asking for a direct inquiry. What we're doing here is we're offering a lead magnet. It's a lead magnet, which, again, lead magnets I feel have been, it's more of a blurb than anything else. And I think the true essence of what a lead magnet is has been completely forgotten. Whereas all of my front end now, and we're probably up to doing this month maybe £140,000 from going from £10,000 to £20,000 per month rather, maybe 2 years ago, and it's really ratcheted up. And that's all been on the back of offering a lead magnet, showing people the process that goes into generating whatever my outcome is. So in the creative instance, jot down the steps of what you will do with a client to achieve that outcome of increasing the click-through rate or increasing the conversion rate of your website or whatever that thing is that you allow people to do. Put it down step by step, either stick it in a Google Doc or narrate it over a 10-minute video and give it away for free. That alone will set you apart from everyone else who's not doing that kind of stuff, because in the creative industry, I don't believe many people are, and increases that trust straight away. They'll feel that they know you, and then them reaching out to you, they feel the barrier is a lot lower because they feel they already know you to a degree, and conversation starts a lot easier, a lot smoother, and then you can transition to what you do and how you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives people the confidence. I always use the analogy of going in for an operation. What you'll notice is that the doctor or surgeon will always kind of tell you what's going to happen. You know, you're going to come on this day and then we're going to do this. And then if you're just like, anyway, so we're going to operate on you now. Good luck. See you when you wake up. You kind of feeling, oh my God. So I think just knowing the process shows you know what you're talking about. And so many creatives are scared to give that away. They're like, oh, but what about if somebody goes and does it themselves? Or what about if a competitor steals it? And what if, you know? So I think it's really important.
It's a risk. And I think even in my little world as well, it's, plagiarism is rife. I mean, I had one competitor, definitely not naming any names, but he took my strap line, he took my blurb, even on the images that I used to promote a certain webinar I was running, he even underlined the same words that I underlined and had the same color scheme as me. I'm thinking that it's audacious, to be fair. And I suppose the common advice is take it as a compliment. But how I actually look at it is that people are trying to take food off my children's plates. So not quite the compliment, but it does happen. You can't stop it from happening. And that ultimately is the price of doing well, having people copy you. So take it as a kind of a badge of honor rather than a risk of complete ruin.
I'm just curious, without segueing too much, what do you do in that situation?
Block on every platform. I had a few people mention, the only reason I was aware of it is because some people came to me and said, have you seen this? I was like, wow, okay, that's really below the belt. And this was a lot bigger company than me. We're talking probably 20 or 30 million pounds turnover. And it was the MD rebranding everything the way I branded everything. And it was audacious, to be fair. So Andy was on my email list. So he was taking all of my content ideas, putting his spin in it and then using it. So again, is it a compliment? I'm not sure. Did I feel threatened? Absolutely. I just went through and blocked everything and just took it that it's going to happen. It's a price of getting better and doing well. And it's probably not the last time it will happen. Just head held high. What they're not going to be able to do is come up with your next idea. The creativity comes from you within. You can get people kind of copying you, but they're never going to have that essence of what got you where you are and is going to get you where you're going. They can never copy that.
They'll always be one step behind.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Everyone's like, Matt, stop talking about random stuff. Get back onto the gold. So we've got the banner image. It calls out your ideal client ICP for anybody who doesn't know what that is, ideal client profile. So the people that you really want to attract. It alludes to an outcome of some kind. And there is a call to action, which is either drop me a DM or some kind of lead magnet, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's keep going. What else do we need to do?
So the connecting stuff then. So we've got 100 connections per week we can max out. You might want to do 90. So you've got kind of like 10 left over per week if you meet someone networking or, you know, one of your friends has joined networking LinkedIn, you want to connect with them. So just leave yourself a little bit of a remit there.
And just to clarify, Jason, there's a couple of things that you mentioned. Number one, you're using some form of automation. Is that right? And number two, you aren't doing a connection message at all.
No.
Okay. And just run me through the thinking behind that.
Yeah, there's different ways to skin a cat. I'm not suggesting that no message is always the better option. I think no message is always the better option than copy pasting the same message to everyone. So
Agreed.
You can get incredibly high connection acceptance rates, which is the real consideration as to why to add a connection text or not. The highest acceptance rate you'll get is when you really personalize it to that person. So if they've changed position or they've added some content that you really liked, or you've got a genuine compliment to make, or you want to actually have a conversation with somebody, it looks like a genuine connection request, then those ones, it's nearly 1 for 1 almost, maybe 80% on a bad day. But when you're in a process-driven mindset of this is a regular marketing campaign, there's no reason why you shouldn't automate. So we can automate the initial connection request. Don't add a text, as mentioned. Now, stats have shown that you just get a higher acceptance rate. And even now, when I teach people this on my program, I get challenged. I've heard that it would be better to have a text there. Only one way to find out. We test it, and nearly every time, the acceptance rate is higher when there's no text there. So it just, by way of numbers, have been able to kind of get in touch with more people and build your audience faster. Why would you not just do what gives you the biggest impact?
Yeah, that's interesting. I wouldn't have predicted that. And so again, without segueing too much into the nuances of connection messages, one of the things that I talk about is kind of what you just said, is around if you're going to do it properly. There's literally no point in doing a copy and paste. I don't think that's doing anything for you. A lot of my clients want to connect with people who are quite high up in companies and quite well-known companies. So let's just take Nike, for example. Let's imagine I want to connect with the marketing manager around Nike because I want Nike as a client. Likelihood of them accepting just a one-off connection request without any text versus something hyper-personalized that is maybe referencing someone else they know or a project they've worked on. Or
yeah. Well, firstly, the acceptance rate will be exactly the same. We're connecting with other people, like these people who work at the head of product at Nike. You know, they have good days, bad days. They have a family. They drive a car. They go on holiday twice a year. They're just people like us. So they're not these kind of mythical beings that they work on different roles and have a different psychology that we have. You know, you probably meet one of them in Asda later on today and you wouldn't realize, you know, it's just another person. The counter argument by way of sending a personalized connection request, which again would have value. Yep, you do your research, you mention, you know, maybe a previous job that they worked at that you knew someone who, you know, worked with, or whatever link you can make to make it personalized will get their attention. But the way that marketing and LinkedIn is evolving, they'll know it's just a ruse to try and get, you know, in the foot in the door. They'll know that you're trying to find things to kind of link to and reference, and because everyone else is doing the same thing, because they know that their time and their attention is gold dust. So you're almost kind of like, the way you're framing the connection is that you're already trying to chase them. Whereas if we treat them like another normal human being, almost that kind of positioning is almost a little bit closer to kind of normal, because you speak to these people all the time. You're not giving them any special attention or treatment. They're just another person that you work with every day, day in, day out at other big companies. There's no drama. So, but as I mentioned a second ago, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I've got my preference by way of doing it after the history of, you know, kind of teaching this with others, but there are certainly other approaches. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I guess it depends where you're going with it. So, for example, one of the ways that I think about it in my mind is like you said, a kind of marketing campaign. Like if I'm going to launch something, an event, a book or whatever, and I do want a higher volume because I know that translates into more eyeballs, versus I'm trying to build a relationship with the Brené Browns of the world, or, you know, whoever. I might be a bit more strategic in my approach because I know that just like a straight up cold, hey, by the way, here's my thing, like probably isn't something that they're necessarily interested in. And you still have to be human, but maybe you're not trying to convert them straight away, if that makes sense. Like you're playing the long game of building a relationship with someone versus a prospect who you might want to get an inquiry from today or next week.
It is all about the long game, and the long game doesn't have to be that long either. So we would never, ever go in with a pitch. What we do go in with is a question. And the question is always linked to the outcome that you provide. And you know the outcome that you provide is of interest to who you're connecting with because you've done all this research before. So you're not connecting with these random people who might be interested in what you do. You know that the VP of Mike runs ads and a 1% lift in their click-through rate is going to equal an extra £2 million a month. You know they're going to be interested in that, or whatever kind of the link is. That may not have made sense, but you know the thing you're going to be putting in front of them is going to be of interest to them. And all you do is you ask if they have an issue around that area. Just a simple question. You're not trying to push anything, promote anything. May not even need to lead to anything right there and then. You just want to plant the seed that this person that's just connected with me understands the problem I've got, and they might have a solution. So is it going to be worth 5 minutes of my time just to see if they've got something that I've never experienced before, or they could help us or not? So you kind of try to tip the odds in your favor as much as possible by almost understanding the problems that they've got and offering a solution. I mean, they don't know that you understand the problems that they've got. You're just coming to them out of the blue, and all of a sudden you're almost this Jesus type character, which has got all of the answers that you've never met before. And it's like, actually, yeah, that does actually resonate. We are having an issue with our click-through rate on our ads. What have you got for us, for instance?
Yeah. So I'm guessing here, the more specific you can be around that challenge or that outcome, the better. Because if it's just like, hey, by the way, like, are you happy with your brand? Probably not going to fly.
Yeah.
It's got to be really... Yeah, it's got to be really specific. Like, have you noticed X recently? Or, okay. Let's get down into the messaging a bit in a minute, because I just want to make sure everyone's got the jigsaw pieces together, because there's a lot here to unpack, right?
Sure,
there's the foundational stuff that people... and that's why you get paid to do this and are very good at it, because it's not... You can't unpack it all in an hour-long podcast. No. But there's the fundamentals, which most people aren't doing. straight away, which is knowing their ideal client, being very targeted, understanding the outcome. So let's imagine I've done that work. I've put that onto my profile. My banner is spot on. It's talking to my ideal client. My heading is talking to my ideal client. I've got some kind of lead magnet on my profile, which is valuable to my ideal client. I'm connecting now with up to 100 people a week. I'm making these connections. I'm getting connection rates. People start accepting. Now you're talking about asking them a question. So tell me more about that. How do we formulate the question, and what's the kind of thing we're saying?
Sure. So it's the question comes from the problem that they have, that they have. So again, historically, people come to you because they have this problem, they want this solution to achieve this outcome. So when you've got that, when you've got a good understanding of that, and again, right back to the basics, the problem, the solution, the outcome, no one's going to give you a pat on the head saying you've got the right answer. Gut instinct has to tell you that people come to me to solve this problem. We give them this kind of package of whatever, and they get this result at the end of it. And then you got to link your cart to that. So the question is either around, are you achieving enough of the outcome, or are you experiencing a little bit of this problem? Now, all we want to be doing is kind of poking the bruised rib. So people respond more to alleviating problems than they do to achieving goals. So everything that I kind of do has a steer towards, do you have an issue? And you put it in their words as well. So for me, my little world, and it's all going to be related to everyone who's listening to this, your little world. So when people come to you and you work with people, this, that, and the other, is going to be related to the language they use, the problem they have, and relate it to you. Now, for me, my outcome, 10 inquiries per week, the problem is feast or famine. We have a good period and a bad period, and a good period and a bad period. It's such a common problem that small business owners have. And I tap straight into that by asking, have you ever experienced a period of feast or famine? The ones who are in famine will say, yeah, it's tough. I'm kind of in that now, to be fair. Then I follow up with, I've got a short video actually showing you how to kind of permanently remove that. Would you mind if I send it over, or would you like to see it? 9 times out of 10, it's a yes, send it over, and then they're in my little world. And it's just the same way. You don't need to have a lead magnet to kind of send over to them. All we're doing is opening dialogue. So then whatever they reply with, you have a normal conversation. You ask what they're doing about it, what they've done before. Would they like to see a different way of attacking that problem? It needs to feel natural, and it's only going to be guided based on what their reply is. Then coming on to I know I'm trying to kind of just brain dump a load of knowledge in a very short period of time, but the best way to get a response isn't to hit them with the question instantly after they've accepted your connection request, because then it feels a little like, whoa, that's a little bit too forward.
Yeah, like, who's this guy?
Exactly. So what we do is we delay. We leave at least 2 working days. So they connect with you, almost forgotten about you. What they more likely will have done, though, is clicked on your profile to see who you are, because they've never heard of you before. They'll see that you work with your ICP to achieve certain outcome because they would have browsed your profile. So they've got somewhere in the grey matter. They've got half an idea of what you do. Leave it for 2 days, and then you go in with a very conversational, hi, John, we were connected a few days ago. Just a quick question. Then you ask the question, and then you wait. Nothing, no airs and graces about it. There's no kind of magic template to use. You just quite simply open a conversation with asking a question and see where it goes from there.
Let's imagine I've done this and I'm just not getting replies from people. What are some of the troubleshooting steps that I might go through to figure out why?
Right. So the common problems are that you are, because this is the analysis that we have in my program. We've been doing it for 2 weeks, not getting any bites. What's the problem? I then take a look at the messaging they've been using, the wording they've been using. Almost every single time, they're using their jargon, not the recipient's jargon. So I could be using, are you getting enough leads through your website? And that wording, they don't use those phrases, they don't use those words, it means nothing to them. Or I could say instead, have you invested in a website recently? You're getting traffic, but you're not getting any inquiries. That straight away, if that scenario has played out, they'd be like, yeah, actually, that is happening. So the trick is to take a look, and this is where you might need somebody to kind of have a look at it for you. Because if you can't kind of see outside of your little world, you may not know that you're making these mistakes. The common one is that you're talking more your language than their language, and they're not picking up on what you're trying to say. So all we need to do is ask the same question, but use different words. Brainstorm, get a Google Doc up and write the same question 4 different ways, and you rotate through each 4 ways, and one of them will stick.
Okay, love that. Nice and simple. Very concise. Second question is, are we automating this first message as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is actually doing quite a lot of the heavy lifting because we've got the automations connecting, we've got the automations asking this first message. And so is there a point you get to if somebody says, yeah, I'd love to take a look at that video, where you now have a process to kind of follow up with them? Or what happens to the people that give you a positive response?
So it's all positioned for them to come to us as well. We try not to chase. We chase, then positioning's off, we're chasing them, and then that just sets the tone for the entire.
Because it's really interesting because you talk about this idea of inbound, and I know that's something that a lot of people listening want. They just, if my ideal clients could just come to me, please, rather than, and we're kind of doing this, but in a poking way. Like we're sort of poking and connecting and then saying, hey, look at this stuff.
It is, yeah. It's like an outbound / it's outbound to inbound because you're making the first move, then you're stepping back and you're waiting for them to, it's like a dance really. You go first, you need reciprocation. You don't continue chasing because it's just doing more and more damage. They may not be interested, they may not be in the market, they may not have that problem. And if they don't, that's fine. There's plenty more people that will because you've identified this is a generic problem that your audience have. Some will be feeling it, and those who are feeling it are going to be ones that are going to reach out. So we then move on to the power of the lead magnet. Now, different ways, different processes of how you can get or transition from a direct message to booking a call. One of the best ways to do this, in my humble opinion at least, is to use a lead magnet. The particular type of lead magnet is specific as well. It's a 10 to 15 minute video. Doesn't have to be that length of time. It could be as short or as long as you wish. It has to be as long as it needs to be. So don't cut corners, don't add filler. It's as long as it needs to be. And that is, as I referenced earlier, to kind of jot down your system. The headline is the outcome. This is how to get a 4% click-through rate on your ads or whatever it is that you've identified that you want to kind of hang your hat on. And then you run through it. Step 1, we do this. Step 2, we do this. Step 3, we do this. And embedded between step 1, step 2, step 3, you also reference the problems they will have if they try to do it themselves or through the agency that they're using at the moment or the outsourced freelancer they've got. The common problems that they'll be facing, which will ultimately lead to them using you. So you go through your own system step by step, and you also reference embedded throughout the problems that they're currently facing, which is stopping them achieving the outcome themselves. You haven't got the time to do it. You don't know the creative insight. You don't know what is a good pattern interrupt on the newsfeed, whatever those things are. And then at the end of it, it's an open, and you've sold the sizzle. You maybe reference the case study as well. At the end of it is, if you'd like more details on us working together and we can do this process for you or whatever your service is. And then whatever that call to action is going to tee up your next step. So for me, my lead magnet it's a 10-minute video, sits on a LinkedIn article, and my call to action is comment the word details below, and I'll direct message you some more information. So yours could be, click the link below, go over to my Calendly link and book a 15-minute chat, and we'll see, if there's any scope of us working together. So it doesn't really matter what that call to action is. The point of the lead magnet is to list down your process, reference the problems they're having, which is stopping them doing it themselves through whatever means they're doing it at the moment, and then a call to action to take the next step, which is just to have an open chat to see if it's possible to work with one another or whatever that terminology needs to be. There's no magic phrase, there's no magic one-liner. You just have to reference, send me a direct message or comment below or click on this link, and then you push people through it.
Yeah, and I'm assuming the easier you make it for people, the better, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Smooth each stage, and you'll get better at this as well. And my first lead magnet was very clunky. It took me a while to kind of, there's when you're doing any form of video marketing, the common advice is don't clear your throat. So it's don't mumble and fluff. Just get straight to the point. The first 3 seconds is going to either keep someone or so don't kind of explain what your life history for the first 2 minutes. You need to just get straight to the heart of the content. Tell them what's in it for them, and short, punchy, to the point.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so just a few more kind of nuanced questions on this. I've heard this concept before. I think I've heard it referenced as like a mini VSL, but it's basically like a video that kind of talks through your process.
Yeah.
Right, okay. And are we saying that this is the kind of main call to action on your LinkedIn profile, or is there the lead magnet plus this thing?
Yeah, so this is my main one. I have a longer form piece of content, which is my webinar. So the webinar is an hour-long version of the mini VSL. Same content, same structure. It's just padded out a little bit more. For all intents and purposes, I would ignore the fact that the webinar exists because I probably get 10% of my client base through that. The majority come through the VSL. And so I got really strict with this as well. And I'm sure, again, working with Taki, as we both have done, the law of one was very, stood out to me. As in one process, don't deviate, don't add extra legs to it, just kind of keep everyone down a very firm funnel, do this, then this, then this. So now I don't engage with anybody by way of what I do, how much it is, guarantees of the program, how it all works. I don't even qualifying people. I don't entertain anybody until they've seen the VSL, because that sets everything up. It explains how it works. It goes through the nitty gritty. It explains the logistics. And then when they know that, then we can qualify, then we can get to price, and then they can make a decision if they want to join or not. So the VSL is literally the gateway of people working with me. So the dynamic has to be people working with you other than you working with other people. So you're not just trying to kind of flog your own services and trying to get the attention and hoping someone pays attention. The positioning is you're the prize. They have to go through this VSL. They have to answer your qualification questions, and then you give them the invitation whether to work with you or not.
And the qualification, does that happen once they've watched the VSL? There's a button that says, hey, book a call on my calendar. And I'm assuming things like Calendly, you can literally just ask those qualification questions on the calendar booking, or there's a form before that, or?
So what I would do, it depends what your sales process is. My sales process is purely through the DMs. So you would qualify before you get to the sales process. My sales process is a Google Doc. Here's the information. Give me a yes or no. Very kind of low key. If your sales process has to be, so if you need a more detailed brief, it would obviously have to be a call. So you do the qualification before you give them the calendar link, or whether if you're going to manually set up a Zoom call or whatever, ask them what times and dates they're free. But I would ask the questions first. I wouldn't put it on a form, because you want to feel like it's a conversation. If you put it on a form, it kind of loses that. You lose a little bit of rapport. It feels a little bit robotic, a little bit. It does feel process driven. You want the qualification questions to feel like you're having an open conversation with them. So it also serves as a rapport builder, as well as just kind of a box ticking exercise. And then when they've kind of ticked all the boxes, I suppose in that sense anyway, when they have said yes to all of your criteria, then you can jump on a call with each other. And it is all down to positioning. You are the prize, they are coming to you, which I found most inquiries aren't used to. They're used to the provider chasing them. And when you kind of flick that, you all straight away, you stand out from the crowd. I'm not used to this. The people are usually kind of chasing me down and trying to persuade me to work with them. This is I'm trying to persuade him to work with me. How does that work? So yeah, you're flipping the script.
Yeah, I love that. And have you got any advice on how to do that other than this process that we're following? Is there anything else that makes up that positioning?
The one extra thing for me, so we've got people, we're connecting with people, they've got the lead magnet, you've got them in the DMs, so that kind of does a lot of the heavy lifting. And for quite a large part of me running this little process, that was all I ever needed. The one extra thing which I kind of layered on top of that, or I've become more aware that it needed to be layered on top, was my LinkedIn content. So a lot of people at the moment, they view kind of LinkedIn content as that needs to do all of the selling for you. And there's such a big emphasis on just doing LinkedIn content, being a content creator and having a massive following. And that's a handful of people's thing, and that's perfectly fine, not knocking it. That's never really been my bag. But what I am using LinkedIn content for is to continually nurture. So you're having this conversation with them, which may last a couple of days. So you'll be online with them, you'll ask a couple of questions, and then they'll log off or you log off. And then next day when you're online again, you'll have more of a conversation. So you'll be chatting to them maybe over a day or two. And over that day or two, your LinkedIn content is still going out, which are thought leader pieces, which is all about achieving the outcome and solving the problem and agitating the pain. So you are letting them know that you know what you're talking about at the same time of you directly talking to them, if that makes sense. So you're nurturing them in one part of LinkedIn, and you're directly qualifying them in a different part of LinkedIn, and it adds to your positioning, if nothing more, and it helps smooth that process, because they are constantly reminded that this chap knows what he's talking about.
Makes sense. I have a question around what the 30 minutes a day routine looks like.
LinkedIn wise, it's creating content, continuing conversations, and replying to comments.
Okay.
And that's
awesome.
It.
So that's basically it.
Yeah.
So you've got this automation running in the background doing most of the heavy lifting.
And that's the reason why all we have to do is just reply to conversations, reply to comments, and add content, which is the only manual bit that you need to do. The rest is the system's running in the background, and you're just waiting for people to kind of reply to you, and then you have to manually take the reins.
Okay, love it. I'm going to play, for the last 5 minutes, I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit. There's some people listening to this that are thinking, that all sounds great, but I hate automation. If anyone automates any messages to me, I just ignore them. I get 100 of these pitches a day. Why would I listen to them? Why would I, I get 100 people a day messaging me saying, we can create more leads for you on LinkedIn. I just ignore them all. This won't work for me. Have you got anything to say to the people listening like that?
You're not being conversational enough. The pitch is an obvious pitch. If you're wanting to have an actual conversation with somebody, write them, and you think people are just going to kind of knock you back and not reply, think that you're writing the message to your grandma.
Okay.
You will soften everything you say. You might get a little bit colloquial, but not unprofessional. It has to look like you're actually writing this to an actual other person. And as soon as you move away from that, the recipient will know that this is just a bombardment of, you've got 50 lined up a day and you're hoping someone bites. It just has to come across to the other person that this is an individual message written to them. And the way you do that is being short, conversational. And when people come onto my program and they really battle with this, so when they say to me, nothing's working, I'm not getting any bites, I have a look at what they've done, as well as kind of putting things in their own jargon and not the prospect's jargon. They're sending paragraphs of text. I'm talking 3 sentences. That's all it needs to be. And then conversation will open up from there. What we want to be doing is getting a reply, teaching others to have a conversation with us. So we don't want 3 paragraphs of text. We want it conversational. Write it like you're talking to your grandma, and we want 3 sentences max.
Can you give us a quick example of that? Like if you were connecting with me, I'm probably an ideal client. What might you ask me? What might you say?
It will be something along the lines of, hi, Matt. Hope you're keeping well. We connected a couple of days ago. I work with clients to increase their inbound enquiries. Is that anything that you've ever struggled with before? And it will be a yes or no. And granted, we're not looking for a 1-for-1 reply rate. We're talking maybe a 10% reply rate at best. So you are still going to get people thinking, I'm not interested in that. I haven't got the time. That's not even a problem anyway. But you're looking for the ones who that does resonate with. So again, we're looking at kind of general market dynamics. At any given point, there's only between 4 to 6% of any given market in the mode to buy anyway. So even in a perfect case scenario, if you closed everyone that's available to be closing, you would only get a 4 to 6% response rate that would then lead on to making a purchase. So 10% response rate and you're doing very well.
And what are we doing with the people that just don't reply? Is there any follow-up or do we just leave it?
Personally, I leave it. I've seen others that have maybe a 3 or 4 kind of sequence, maybe 2 days after that and then a week after that. I feel that if not, people aren't responding kind of there and then there's hounding them is going to do more damage than good. Now, what we are then relying on is your content being seen in their newsfeed. And if you are talking about things that they can relate to when you're sharing relevant insights and you've got a case study that really piques their interest, they're going to come back to your DM. Could be a week later, could be a month later. But yeah, so if people don't reply, don't worry. We don't chase, we replace.
Okay. Is there any validity in following up, but with something just valuable? Like, I don't know, say a week later, if they don't reply, just being like, hey, Matt, not sure if you saw my message above, but just recorded this short video about how we help people do that. You might find it interesting, no reply needed, or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely no harm in kind of fleshing out a longer sequence campaign. And if anyone has anything which is genuinely valuable to the other person, then you'll be doing them a disservice in not at least offering it to them.
Yeah. Because it's interesting. I saw some stats a while ago that something like 60% of replies come in the second or third follow-up.
Yeah.
So I think it's about doing it in a graceful way, right? Where you're not like, hey, Jason, did you see that message? Hey, Jason, just check in.
Sure.
It's kind of like, hey, by the way, you might find this valuable. If not, no worries, no reply needed. Just kind of being friendly and not pushy, right?
What I find works very well. Now, if they don't reply to my first message, I tend not to kind of chase. But if they have replied initially and then they drop off, it feels like they're starting to ghost, then I would have a mini follow-up sequence that I would message them once a day for the next 3 days. Because people are busy. They'll be doing something, they'll be chatting to you, and then they'll be busy, and then they'll come back on LinkedIn, forget to reply, then they go away again. So when they've shown me some form of response, I would then follow up three times, and that would be very simply: is this a better time to have a quick chat about this? It has to be in context to what the last message was and how far you got through the conversation so far. But it is quite simply just a prompt, because you'll then ping up as a new notification at the top of their LinkedIn profile or on their phone, just draws their attention back to it. And because you're having a one-to-one conversation, likely they will continue. And what is absolutely underrated, which I love at the moment, are GIFs.
Okay.
I'm sure everyone's seen the Pablo Escobar one, where he's kind of standing in the swimming pool waiting for something to happen, then he's on the swing and he kind of rotates through a few things of him kind of crossed arms looking out into the distance, like he's waiting for something.
Yeah.
Send that, nearly, I'd say, 9 times out of 10, you'll get a reply. And it's also met with equal humor, as in, oh, that was funny, or I've not seen that one before, because not many people are doing this at the moment. So take advantage while it's novel. If everyone starts doing this, then it loses the.
Well, once everyone hears this podcast, Jason, there'll be millions of people doing it, and it will.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Last question for you: what are your thoughts on video prospecting, like recording a short loom or something for that person? I know that's not scalable, although there is some AI out there at the moment that kind of does it. Have you ever experimented with it?
I actually haven't, to be honest. No, I think that's purely because it hasn't been scalable. And you reference AI, and I have seen and I have received a handful of AI videos with them trying to suggest that this is actually them sending me the video, and it does the opposite effect. So if anybody is considering doing the video route and using an AI bot to kind of mimic facial expressions and record the voice or whatever, don't do it, because you've already lost. Until it gets to a point where it is, you can't tell, genuinely can't tell.
Yeah, it's probably not far off, but it's not there yet.
It's not there
yet. And then when everyone starts automating that, you're like, is this a real person or not? And yeah. And where do you think the future of this is going? Because obviously automation is one thing. People are starting to think like, am I actually talking to this person? Is this a bot? Is this AI? Like, fast forward 5 years' time, what do you think social selling looks like?
It has to be based on authenticity. And even with any form of AI or bots or chatbots or whatever kind of automation is being used, it will eventually become so blindingly obvious that people will just completely disengage with it. Now, it's got to a point now where when anybody's saying, I'm sure everyone's experienced this, when you get an automated DM where you put an emoji in your name, and then when they intro you in the DM of, hi, John, and they include the same emoji that you've got in your name because it's been a mail merge, instantly the game is up and you know it's inauthentic. Backtracking slightly, because then it almost kind of negates what I said earlier on. There's a section within the tool called Dripify, which automatically takes the emoji out. So that little trap you won't fall into. But the one problem I do see people doing, which again is another kind of trap people fall into, which is only going to get worse as time kind of goes on, like say fast forward 5 years, is the overuse of mail merging other tags. So say, for instance, company name. So, hi, Jason, I noticed you worked at 1, 2, and 3 Limited. As soon as they've included my company name, I know it's not them. So automation's great, but people have to be very mindful that it still has to be conversational. And as soon as it goes 1% away from conversational, your response rates are going to drop off massively. So as long as we can still send messages and get in touch with people and it feels authentic, then I don't see this ending. But then all the little kind of developments such as the video AI and AI chatbots, I don't see that being a threat at the moment, but it may flood the market later down the line and we might have a problem.
Yeah. And I think the thing I love about your approach is that you are not suggesting it's all automated. Really, your heavy lifting is almost a little bit like paid ads. Like, you just kind of getting in front of potential prospects, and then your objective is to start conversations with people, and then you take over manually once the conversation starts.
Absolutely, yeah. It's all about conversations. And we also have a module in the program on email, outbound email as well. And it's not a pitch up front. It's asking a simple conversation, just in the same manner as we do with DMs. Everything starts with a conversation. So you have to get that conversation started as quickly as possible. And as soon as we've got that little kind of process in place, we've got the wording, the targeting, that people are responding to this kind of sequence of messages, then you've got a base to then fill people into your pipeline, onto a call, and the customer journey then truly begins.
Jason, this has been one of the most valuable conversations I've had in a long time. I know everyone listening will find it valuable. I also know that there's some people out there that want help with this. So for those people, how do they connect with you? How do they get your help with 10 inbound inquiries every single week?
Good man. Well, it's been a pleasure to be on here anyway, Matt, to be honest. So thank you for having me. Yeah, it's quite simply find me on LinkedIn, Jason Squires, search for me. I'm sure there's not many Jason Squires out there, so it should be pretty obvious which is me. You'll see it in my strap line anyway. Get 10 inquiries per week. Connect with me, send me a quick direct message, say hello, and yeah, we can have a chat.
Go from there. Awesome. Love it. Jason, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
You're very welcome.
There may be a round 2 if there's enough demand.
Sounds good to me. We'll do it again.
Awesome. Thanks, dude. Before you leave, if you found this episode valuable, please hit the subscribe button. Also, if you are a creative business owner doing more than 10K a month and you want to grow and scale without working longer hours or hiring a massive team, then I have something you may be interested in. We have just developed a tool that will give you a custom growth strategy based on exactly where you are in your business right now. So you can stop consuming lots of random content and trying to figure things out on your own and actually get something personalized to you. You will also receive a free copy of my book and it will point out relevant chapters. If you'd like to take the scorecard, it's totally free. You just have to click the link in the show notes or connect with me on LinkedIn and you will see a link in my bio. Thanks for listening. This is the Creative Courage Podcast.